Welcome to If I'd Only Known, where seasoned online business experts share valuable tips to improve your mindset, increase your revenue, and gain insight on what they would have done if they'd only known what they know now when they started their businesses. And now, your host, Sherri Coffelt.
Hey everyone, welcome to If I'd Only Known, where I ask amazing experts what they would do differently if they knew everything they knew today when they started their business. But before we get to that, we're going to meet today's guest. I want to introduce you to Nadine Hanchar. She's a seasoned counselor, she's a consultant, she's a facilitator, she's an author. She's got over 40 years of experience in personal and professional development. That's pretty amazing, right? She's also developed a process called the PEP Personality Process, and it's really a unique profiling system for your personality that offers deep insights into how individuals process information that affect their quality of life. Sounds like I need that. Nadine truly does believe in the power of heart consciousness. We're going to be talking about that a lot today. Self-acceptance and respect for others. By advocating for unity, compassion, and joy, she really is able to emphasize that our differences make us stronger. Welcome, Nadine.
Thank you so much, Sherri. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to today.
I am so looking forward to this talk. You and I have known each other for quite a while, actually. We've got a lot in common in what we're passionate about and in some of our training. And I can't wait to hear how you've combined that all together to what you call living from the heart, right? Tell us about living from the heart, what that means.
Well, living from the heart, over time, we've gotten more and more and more head-based. And we've really disconnected in a lot of ways from our heart. And our heart is where our intuition lies. And so, some people say, well, I don't believe in intuition. Well, they can say it's a feeling or it's an inspiration or whatever word they want to call it. But the thing is that when we disconnect from our heart and we're not having that in alignment, what happens is that we end up sort of not being compassionate with ourselves, not caring about nature, not, the things that are really actually truly important as a foundation to come from actually resides in the heart. And so that's why I'm so passionate about it.
Oh, I love that. I mean, and you're so right. I mean, it's like when we speak, I always tell my clients, when you act from your heart, when you ask questions from the heart, whatever it might be, you can't say or do the wrong thing. So I so resonate with that. Now, I know that there's some things that you talk about in terms of how we develop that heart consciousness. And I know one of the first things you talk about is how we can start to deepen our emotional connections. Give me some ideas around that in terms of what it means and how we can deepen those connections.
Well, I'm going to start off with relationships.
Okay.
But relationships are more than just our relationship with others, which is where a lot of people focus their attention. A relationship, first of all, with ourselves. Okay, so our relationship with ourselves is literally the foundation of how we actually create relationships with everyone else. So if we feel that we're lacking, we go to try and fill that with someone else. Mm-hmm. If we feel that we're not good enough, we try and prove that we're good enough to other people, trying to get them to show us. And so it's really our relationship to self is foundational. And we need to connect with our hearts to have compassion and love and joy for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And from that place, then we create relationships and healthy relationships with other people. We create healthy relationships with nature. We create healthy relationships with our jobs. We create, because it's not just like we have relationships with everything in our life. And so one of the ways that people can actually start to tune into that is become aware of your relationship to everything in your life. Become aware. Like, what is your relationship to your home? What is your relationship to your car? I had a funny experience, which I'll share with you. When I was about, 18, I think, I was at an accountant's office and and he came out to look at, to get something out of my car, and he looked at my car, and I literally lived almost out of my car because I had everything in it, right now, everything I might need, right? And he looked at my car and he goes, the state of your car is the state of your mind. And I was like, oh, needless to say, I keep my car pretty clean these days.
Yeah.
But what is our relationship with our job? What is our relationship with our spouse or our partner or our children or, our boss or whoever it is? Like, what is your relationship not only to the people, but to the things in your life? Do you take care of your things? Do you treat everything respectfully? It's like, try and treat everything respectfully. And it's like, that's a great place to start, because being respectful to yourself is so important.
Yeah. And do you find that, and I'm saying this because I find that your relationship to those things around us change over time?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And
I was
yeah.
just going to say, I know for me, you mentioned like your relationship to things, and I used to be very much loved my home. I loved my collections, and I had plate collections, and I had a lot of stuff. Not that I was a hoarder, but I just had a lot of stuff that meant something to me. My grandma's china, my grandma's this, my mom's that kind of thing. And when I made the decision to start traveling full time, of course, had to get rid of a lot of stuff. Still didn't get rid of enough. But it was very interesting because I was so ready. I had mentally made a shift that I really thought I was going to have trouble with it. It didn't bother me a bit because my relationship to those things had changed.
Yeah. Well, and there's nothing wrong with good things, and there's nothing wrong with quality things, and there's nothing wrong with whatever it is that you have an attachment to. It's just look at that attachment, and what is that attachment, and how do you treat that thing, right? And absolutely things change over time, because we all shift and change and grow, and there we grow out of things, and in my early days when I got married, China was a big thing, right? I don't use China anymore.
Yep. Yeah, that's a
not
great
not
example.
because I don't like it. It's just it's not where I'm at in my life,
Not
right?
important to you anymore. Yeah.
No, it isn't. And so, but for another person, that might be important.
Right.
And so there's no good or wrong relationship. It's just, how are you treating yourself? How are you treating your things? How are you treating the other people in your life? What are you wanting from them? A lot of things change in terms of our things when we realize what we're actually wanting from them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And what it brings up for me are what, if any, limiting beliefs are we holding around those things or those relationships? Because for me, I think, the limiting belief in some respect was that the things had meaning. And the reality was those, like you're talking about deepening emotional connections, my emotional connection to my grandmother was not held within that crystal bowl. It really is in my heart, and letting go of the crystal bowl didn't change that emotional connection if I decided it didn't.
Right. And I think that a lot of it does have to do with what our intention is, what our goal is, what our understanding is of ourselves, what our beliefs are around those kinds of things. I once had a client who was very upset because he wanted to get a new couch. Of all things, right? He wanted to get a new couch, but he couldn't get a new couch because he had all this hand-me-down furniture from different people, and I said to him, I said, well, do you enjoy it? Do you love it? And he goes, no, I hate it. And I said to him, I said, well, why are you keeping it? Well, because this is my grandmother's, and this is my grandfather's, and this is my aunt's, and this is my, and I said to him, I said, they wouldn't want you to hold on to these things just because they own them,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? Um, you need to decide what's going to make you happy, what's going to give you joy, and I think he got rid of everything and ended up, getting just a few simple things that he wanted.
Right. Yeah. No, I think, yeah, of course you're hitting home with me, because I just went through that with getting rid of the last of my things I had in storage from when I put them there when I started traveling clear back in, prior to the pandemic. And I donated it all. And I shouldn't say all, I donated 90% of it. And that would talk about a letting go.
Yeah. Well, letting go
So,
is a good thing. It
yeah,
makes space,
absolutely.
right?
It's very empowering not to have that stuff, and to really have that emotional connection, like you're talking about, with the people and the memories, and not necessarily the things,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know.
And I don't want to give anybody the impression, though, that having good things or having things that they enjoy, that's a totally wonderful thing.
Absolutely.
And, I just want to make sure that they're clear on that. I was just saying that observe your relationship with them and what you're
Right.
trying, because a lot of people are trying to get things out of their relationships with things, and they're looking for it out here instead of realizing everything is in here,
Right.
right? And I think that that's where heart consciousness comes into play, because as you get a better relationship with your heart, you actually aren't looking out here anymore
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
for that.
And that gets down to that self-worth that you talked about a little bit. And I know you have a lot, you do a lot of work around that, and how we step into that self-worth that we really want, right?
Mhm. Well, people often say, well, you have confidence, but I don't have confidence.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, I didn't always have confidence.
Mhm.
You know, I actually did things to get that confidence. And, as I said, learn to say no, as I learned to set boundaries, as I learned to, look at what is this really the most important thing for me? Does this work for me? Right. And as I respected myself, I gained the confidence. As I was authentic in my life, I gained confidence. And I think that those are pieces that people really need to look for.
Yeah, and what do you tell the folks that you work with? Like, what's the first step in doing that, in building that confidence?
Well, the first step I really encourage is to get to know themselves,
Mhm.
because a lot of times people just really don't.
Yeah.
They know bits and pieces of themselves, but they're so focused on what other people like or what other people want or how to please other people or those kinds of things. So the very first thing I do with everyone is their PEP personality process.
Mm.
And that really tells me and it gives me an in-depth picture of what's going on for them, what happens when, they're in balance, what happens when they're out of balance, what happens when they're stressed, what happens when they're feeling insecure, what happens when they're in an environment, and how that environment affects them. So it tells me a lot about them. And as I explain it to them, they're often quite surprised. I get funny things. People will say to me, "So are you like psychic or what?" Because everyone's psychic, but besides that, they're really, they're really quite surprised by how my 10 little questions can get me as much information as it does. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. And once people have their pet personality, then what does that allow them to do with it? What are their next steps after
Well,
the
it gives me a place to start, and show them how they can get themselves back into balance when they're out of balance.
yeah.
So, if you go out of balance in your communication style, for instance, which is the major part of your personality you show the world, how to get back into balance there. If you're stressed, how do you get back into balance there? If you're feeling insecure, how do you get back into balance there? How do you work with your environments, if they're overwhelming or whatever? So,
Wow, that's amazing and so important. And you talked a lot about communication. You just mentioned that, and about how we express ourselves authentically, how we be true to ourselves. Um, What's the value of that?
Wow. The value of authenticity is so, so incredibly important.
Yeah.
It gives you freedom. It really does give you freedom. It gives you resilience. It gives you confidence. It gives you so many things.
Yeah.
Being authentic, um, we often suppress ourselves as human beings based on what we think other people will think. And
Absolutely.
but it's like I do an exercise where I really make a fool of myself in front of everyone. I do it on purpose.
Yeah.
And then I say, now do this at home in the morning, right? Like it's kind of like a positive rant that you do in the morning about today is going to be my best day or whatever. So yeah, and people go, well, I don't know if I can do that, right? And it's like, yes, you can. Like, just do it and have fun with it
Right.
and be silly, because we spend so much time taking ourselves so seriously.
Yeah.
And we're really, the more that we can lighten up, the more that we can, have gratitude in our life. Gratitude is a majorly important thing to be doing in our lives. And we always have something to be grateful for.
Yeah. Oh,
And,
I don't know if even knew this, but I start every coaching call I do with asking the question, what are you celebrating today?
oh,
Because
no, I
there's
didn't know that.
always something to be grateful for. There's always something to celebrate. And as entrepreneurs, we just don't celebrate enough. We're not grateful for the little things. We're not grateful that all of our clients showed up for the calls that day or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And yeah, gratitude is so powerful, so powerful.
Well, and it helps us also to be present in our life,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so often we're either in the past or in the future, and we're not really present. And in the present is where we get fulfillment. It's where
Mhm.
we actually create the meaning in our life.
Yeah.
And so it's so important to be present and really here. And being authentic helps us to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it, like, you it's coming full circle, it also creates that freedom because, when you're authentic, doesn't matter what other people think. It doesn't matter even how you look. I think about, this is from my business standpoint. I used to hate doing videos. I mean, even like doing this was excruciating. And I had to script out everything I was going to say, and I had to have just the right outfit on, and your makeup, go to it was like so stressful. Now I do my 2 on Tuesdays every week. I don't script them. I just talk. And it's so freeing, but it's also more authentic because people do get me, the good, the bad, the ugly. And sometimes the flubs and the ums and the whatevers. And people, I think, really like that, particularly in today's world. I mean, there's so much junk out there. And there's so much inauthenticity that people are really, really looking for people to just be real.
Yeah, and there's just so much what I call fear mongering out there.
Yes.
And we have so much ability as a human being,
Mhm.
and so many people are so afraid, and they're being really inundated with all of these fear things. And, particularly in the last few years, it's been incredibly bad. And,
Yes.
having people really get to that place where they can connect with their heart, where they can become resilient, where they can be more independent thinkers instead of having the group think. The group think is not always the right way to go.
Absolutely.
And
As
so,
evidenced by the last few years.
yeah. So, I think that it's really, really important for people to have that to get away from those things and to pay attention. What is your relationship to the news? Like, I don't watch news. What, what is your relationship to what are you putting in here?
Right.
And, I heard something today about use it or lose it.
Mhm.
And, when I see children, all the time on their phones, and I know that their development of their brain needs imagination. It needs exercise. It needs to be, the building blocks and things to create that imaginative, to develop properly. And it really actually, I'm like, okay, let's get back in connection with nature. Let's get back in relationship with each other. And I think that I'm certainly not the only one that's saying that message. I've heard it from other people as well. And I think that it's so important.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I know my sister, I have a 10-year-old nephew, and it's one of the things that she struggles with the most is how do you get him off the dang screens and, outside, or at least, playing with his Legos versus, being on a silly video game. So yeah, it makes you wonder what the next generation is going to be like. But
Well,
anyway,
I'm a very optimistic and very
yeah,
positive thinking person. So I believe that we have a lot coming down in a way that's going to probably be quite unexpected.
yeah. Well, and I think that people have realized the impacts, just like every generation, there's always something with every generation that has an impact. And, we learn from that. And if we don't learn from it, then, shame on us. But I think, I think it is going to change, as you said, and evolve, and then something else will become the opportunity or challenge. So
Yeah,
absolutely.
well, and that's why I've created my heart consciousness community.
Yes. And tell us about that, because I know you've got an amazing opportunity for the listeners.
Yeah, so the heart consciousness community is really about getting to know yourself. It's really about building that authenticity and that resilience and that confidence. It's really about learning to lead from the heart, both lead yourself, and if you're a leader, lead other people from the heart. I'm all about supporting other leaders as well. And it's really if you're looking for a community that will support you, that will give you real tools, real value, then that's really what I'm doing. I'm creating a lot of different resources, and I'm doing a live workshop every month. I'm giving meditations. I'm giving, a community building session, live community building session. So I'm really, really looking at helping people raise their energy vibration, because we've gotten so low in our energies, a lot of people, that they need to pull it up, get going, and that's where we get more creative and all of those things.
Absolutely.
And come up with solutions.
So check out the community. You'll see in the show notes below, there'll be a link there. Nadine has graciously agreed to give you access to a month free in the Heart Consciousness community, and all those goodies that she was just talking about. So don't miss that. And I think there's also an ebook that you get as a gift when you sign up for that as well. So awesome. And thank you so much for that. So before I let you go, I do have one last question. It's the theme of our interview today, or the commonality, if you will, of our interview today. And it's a simple question with some probably not so simple answers. So the question is, if you had known what you know now when you started your business, what would you tell your new entrepreneur self?
I would tell my new entrepreneurial self that it doesn't matter what other people think, that other people, the people that are naysayers in your life are actually just afraid. They're afraid that they're not doing it and they don't want anyone else to do it. I would say that the people that are, saying negative things to you, that's about them. It's not about you. And that what other people think of you, and I've heard this many times, is none of your business.
Yeah.
And it's so true. And to stop or limit yourself in any way because of what other people may say, think, or do is just, just ignore it and get on with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Do what's in your heart. Do what's in your heart. And you trust your heart, you can never be wrong, right?
That's correct.
Oh, I love it. Well, Nadine, thank you so much for being here today. I've enjoyed our conversation and really diving into heart consciousness and how much it can make such a difference in our life. Thank you so much for your free gift and your insights on what you would share with newer entrepreneurs. Is there any parting thoughts that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Please remember that your heart supports you. And so go to your heart, because that's where the love is. It's not out here. If you got love here, you're going to have it out here too.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for that, Nadine.
Thank you, Sherri. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.